Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today. As we wait for attendees to log in and register, we're going to provide a few moments for that. And in the meantime, for those of you who are joining us now, our chat box is going to be used today for any comments that you have. If you have a quick question like, hey, can I get you to go back to that last screen? Please feel free to put it in the chat box. We will also be using the Q&A box, and that one is very important for you all to use today because we will be answering questions at the end of the webinar. So to capture your question and make sure that we answer it, please be sure to use the Q&A box rather than the chat box because your question will likely get lost in the chat box. And again, we're just allowing a few moments for everyone to log in. We had quite a few register for this event. We're going to allow a few moments here. And I still see attendees are coming in. And again, for those attendees who have just joined us, please feel free to use the chat for any quick comments or if you'd like us to go back to a screen. If you have a question about the information, we will be answering those at the end of the webinar. So please use the Q&A box so that way we can be sure to track your question. Hi, Vianney. Nice to see you today. All right, Anna, looks like we have most of our attendees in on our webinar so far, so I'll go ahead and let you take it away.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Laura, and welcome you guys to the very first Restaurant Resilience Series for the Maricopa SBDC. We are thrilled to start this series. We're going to be doing it once a month, the first Tuesday of every month, with a different topic that's going to be affecting you and your industry in particular. Oops, sorry. There we go. All right, so for today, we're going to be talking about some of the new changes that happened in 2021. Lots of things actually, but a few things we're going to be hitting on with our guest speaker is the minimum wage increase, the new Department of Labor expansion. Oops, sorry about that. And limitations on the 80-20 tipping rule, which is something that's new and has just recently come out. At the end of the presentation from John, we'll also be getting an update on COVID relief funding programs. So stay tuned for that, and any questions you have, we can take those there. My name is Anna Minier. I'm newer here with SBDC, started in September, and honored to be part of the CARES Business Analyst team. My specialty is restaurant, hospitality, and tourism. I've been in the hospitality and event business since 2007 with my own company. Also have a catering food truck company that started in 2018. So kind of on all sides of everything, hospitality, tourism, and feel your pain. So that's who I am. In Maricopa, the SBDC is part of a national and state network of small business development centers. Our main offering is no-fee counseling, which is amazing, and everyone should take advantage of it. Here in Maricopa County, we have approximately 17 counselors spread across the county for easy access for our clients. However, we all are working virtually now. At the end of our session today, we will discuss ways for you to get involved with a counselor. It's absolutely something I recommend taking advantage of. We also offer low or no cost programs, just like this one, on varying topics, varying focuses. So you can restaurant, we do financial, strictly COVID, funding type things. So really keep an eye on what we're doing at no cost to you. We're able to provide these services because we're funded on the federal level by the Small Business Administration and locally here by Maricopa Community Colleges and partnering with the Arizona Commerce Authority. Our no-fee counseling can help really help your business during this challenging time. We offer, you can see here, a list of direct topics and everything in between. So disaster loan assistance, manufacturing, technology, export, international trade, which some of you may want to start looking at with your products. So just know we have a wide variety of expertise and services. We also partner with the Procurement Technical Assistance Centers, which is PTAC, which can help clients with government contracting support as well. SBDC has many resources that we make available to our clients at no cost, and these things can be very costly if you try to access them on your own. We have Growth Wheel, which can work in business development, really help you with that. Live Plan is our business planning online platform. It's really great, kind of plug and play situation, really helpful if you're working on a new business plan or just want to revamp the one you have. Our Profit Sense is for financial benchmarking. And then we have market intelligence capabilities, which can be very helpful through SBDC Net and iBiz World. Again, all available to you through your counselor. So we'd like to take a poll. And Laura, I think you're going to pop that up for us. Just want to get to know a little bit about your businesses and how everybody's been dealing with the situation.
That poll is now open, Anna, and we will allow about 30 seconds for everyone to answer how COVID-19 has been affecting their business.
Awesome.
So be sure to get your answers in. Allow that for a few more seconds here. About half of you have answered, so thank you all for putting in your input. All right, and we're going to go ahead and close that poll now, and I will share those answers with you, Anna.
Great. So it looks like the majority have been able to remain open, I'm sure at limited capacity. So that's good news, and hopefully we get everybody I see some are currently closed, get you back open soon. A real quick side note about how I got involved with the SBDC is I started as a client. So I come from the client side of things and I'm now honored to be, on the counselor side, but this works. If you utilize the system, it's going to change your business. So just a little unsolicited plug from myself. All right, so I would love to introduce our speaker today, John Perkins. John's been in business since 1988 and has consulted with businesses and organizations in all aspects of human resource management. One of the most vital services that Mr. Perkins provides is helping clients avoid employment law violations. Mr. Perkins, I'd love for you to take it away.
All right, thank you. I'm going to share my screen here. The Arizona minimum wage increased as of January of this year. When the Fair Wages and Healthy Families Act was passed, it gives the Industrial Commission the opportunity to adjust the minimum wage annually based on Consumer Price Index. So based on Consumer Price Index changes in 2020, the Industrial Commission announced that as of the first of this year, the minimum wage in Arizona is $12.15. For those of you who are not familiar with the Arizona Industrial Commission and have not posted yet the minimum wage poster in English and Spanish, you can get those posters at the website of the Industrial Commission. These handouts are going to be available to everybody. The SBDC will make them available, and it's strongly recommended that you obtain, print, and read through these. I will talk on the highlighted portions and save as much time as possible for questions and answers. If you're in Flagstaff, you have the Flagstaff minimum wage, which is not $12.15, but $15 an hour. As you guys probably know, restaurants can pay servers and other tipped employees less than the minimum wage as long as the tips make up the difference. One of the documents that's available to employers is called Frequently Asked Questions about minimum wage and earned paid sick time. All employers in Arizona are subject to minimum wage. Some of you may know that there is a small business exception to the minimum wage, but that exception is very, very small. In order for a business to be exempt, in Arizona, it has to have revenues of less than $500,000, but even those businesses typically are not exempt from the Fair Labor Standards Act because of what's called individual coverage, which we're going to get to. There's a definition of commerce from the Fair Labor Standards Act. And as it says, and this is again from the Arizona Industrial Commission, because few businesses are exempt in Arizona, even smaller businesses, those with fewer than $500,000 in annual revenue, are going to be covered by the minimum wage and overtime provisions of the Fair Labor Standards Act. There's a fact
Hey,
sheet.
John,
Yeah.
before you keep going, I know that you have a great handout that you'd like to share at this time. I don't know if your screen was able to share with everyone. Do you want to try sharing your screen one more time?
Oh, okay. Well, let me try that. Share screen. Okay. Let me go to let me find the document.
All right, no problem. And as John is pulling that
There
up
it
again,
is.
as a reminder, if you have any questions that come up, please put them in the Q&A box. And then
Yeah,
if you have any comments, go ahead and put it in the chat box.
Yeah, if you guys were not able to see this previously, that's my technological ineptness. So part one talks about the Arizona minimum wage. Again, it went up to $12.15 as of the first of the year. There's information in the handouts about how to obtain the posters if you don't already have them posted, because that's a requirement. Flagstaff to minimum wage is $15 an hour because they have their own minimum wage law.
And is your screen still loading, John? Because we don't see the handouts yet.
No, it's right there.
Let me pull up your handout on my screen and share it that way.
Okay, because it says that I'm sharing on my screen.
Okay, it could just be, Zoom happens. We'll go ahead and share here.
Yeah, I know that to be
right.
true. Okay, so.
All right, so you talked about the posters here.
Yeah, you
talked
can
about
scroll down. You
Flagstaff.
can scroll down. Keep okay. Which, again, right there. Stop. Thanks, Laura. Again, folks, we're going to go through this fairly quickly, and it's strongly suggested that you obtain a copy, print a copy, and read through, because there's a lot of information in the handouts that we're not going to discuss orally. All right, if you go to scroll, Laura, keep scrolling. All right, right there. The Department of Labor has some fact sheets regarding tipped employees. One fact sheet is fact sheet number 14. One fact sheet is 15. One is 15A. As I said earlier, some enterprises, some businesses are not covered by the Fair Labor Standards Act if they have revenue sales of less than $500,000 a year. But within the Fair Labor Standards Act, there's also what's called individual coverage. These are individuals, employees who would be covered even if the enterprise, the business, is not. So if you scroll down just a little bit, Laura, you'll see, whoa, back up. People who make phone calls to persons in other states, people who handle records of interstate transactions. So if you have servers, waiters, waitresses, whomever that are running visas, that's an interstate transaction. So your business might have gross revenues of less than $500,000 in a year, but because of the actions that certain employees take, they have coverage under the Fair Labor Standards Act. Let's scroll down a little bit. Okay. Here's again some examples. Employees who use a telephone, a fax machine, the US mail, and the email system. A little bit more. Employees such as a cashier or waitress who uses electronic to authorize credit card. So in Arizona, even if your business has less than $500,000 in gross annual revenues, it's likely that your employees are covered under the Fair Labor Standards Act. If they're covered under the Fair Labor Standards Act, they're covered under the Arizona Fair Wages and Healthy Families Act. All right, a little bit more, please. This is just more from the Industrial Commission. Keep going. Okay, tipped employees, part 2. Fact sheet 15, 15A, and there's a frequently asked questions regarding tipped employees. All of those are available from the U.S. Department of Labor. These links, these website addresses are in the handouts. The Industrial Commission in Arizona has a document about the minimum wage and earned paid sick time that was updated November of last year. And on pages 12 through 14, it has specific information about tipped employees. You can pay up to $3 an hour less as long as the employee receives with tips at least a minimum wage. So if it, as it says, if a tipped employee does not earn at least a minimum wage after tips, then the employer has to make up the difference. All right, keep scrolling. Right there. Who is a tipped employee? The person who receives a tip free of control. It must be the property of the employee. And that's one of the issues we're going to talk about in a minute. The tip has to be the employee's tip, not the employer's. So what do you do to assert the quote tip credit? Because you can get a tip credit of up to $3 an hour for tipped employees. Number one is you have to provide written notice to each employee. Oops. I know that a lot of people in your industry are not providing written notice to the employee about the tip credit. I'm going to show you something on page 6 where you can meet that expectation. You must be able to document that the employee was paid the maximum of $3 less, which would be $9.15 in Arizona, and that the employee received at least a minimum wage when the tips are added. And they have to be able to retain all the tips. The employer cannot control the tips. All right, a little bit more. Here's some more information from the Arizona Industrial Commission. One of the things that it talks about is the work week. Tips have to be counted in the work week in which the tip is earned. If you're not familiar with that term work week, it comes from the Fair Labor Standards Act. It means a consecutive period of 168 hours. That's 7 times 24. That is a work week. So that's used for the purposes of calculating overtime. I have clients that have a work week that begin on Saturday morning at 1 minute past midnight and go to the following Friday night. Those are typically employers that have people who work on Saturdays and or Sundays. They see how much work the person's done on the weekend, and between Monday and Friday, they can reduce the person's regular work hours so that they don't go over 40 and don't have to be paid overtime. I have one employer that the work week starts at noon on Tuesdays. That's because they used to be an all cash business. They used to pay employees in cash. And by setting the work week to begin at noon on Tuesdays at 11:59 a.m. the following Tuesday, they could calculate payroll, and on Fridays pay people in cash. So it doesn't matter what day it begins. It doesn't matter what time of the day it begins, but it's a 168 consecutive hour period, and the hours worked in that work week determine whether or not the person is eligible for overtime. All right, scroll down a little bit. More about tipped employees, more about tipped employees. Now, the Fair Labor Standards Act says the employer is not eligible to take the tip credit unless it's informed the employees in advance. And that's consistent with the Arizona statute that says they have to be provided in writing. So if you scroll just a little bit farther, giving employees notice. If you are not aware of the National Restaurant Association, they have 2 documents that are available. They're model sample documents. One is notice to tip employees where there's no tip pool, and one is if there's a required tip pool. So if you are not currently providing your employees with a written document about whether you have a tip pool or a required tip pool or no tip pool, then I suggest you look at those sample notices, see which one works in your business, and use it as a model. Obviously, you need to customize it to your own organization and make sure that when people sign it, I would give them the original and keep a copy in their personnel file. That way, if there's ever a question about whether the notice was given, you've got a copy of the signed document dated by the employee in the employee's personnel file, and you can produce that and show the Department of Labor or the Arizona Industrial Commission that such notice was given. Now, what's new? In December, the Department of Labor announced new proposed regulations and published those regulations in the Federal Register. Once regulations are formulated, nothing happens until they're published in the Federal Register. Well, on December 22nd, they were published. So in 60 days, they're supposed to take effect. However, there's a possibility, if not a probability, that these regulations are going to be modified by the current administration. So if you scroll down a little bit, it says executive summary. Go up a little bit, please. Up, whoop, up, right there. So tip pool sharing, this 80-20 rule, has three main points. One is that back of the house employees can be part of a tip pool. Number two, management cannot keep the tips or participate in a tip pooling arrangement. That's a no-no. And to take the tip credit, regardless of the non-tip generating work, you know, when people are cleaning tables or rolling silverware, other things that they do that are not duties that are consistent with tipping. Scroll down a little bit. Talks about the rule expands the tip pool for employers who do not take a tip credit, where back of the house employees who do not traditionally receive tips are now permitted, assuming that this stays in effect and not changed by the current administration. All right, scroll down. So what's the bottom line? If you don't take the tip credit, you may be able to make back of the house position more attractive, keep turnover lower by allowing those employees to receive income through tips. But as it says, this is highlighted, there's a strong chance that the Biden administration will either seek to roll back the rules or even amend them or cancel them. Scroll down, please. So again, from the Department of Labor, there's more information about this new tip regulation that's been published in the Federal Register. Keep going, please. And as you can see, there's a lot of information in the handouts that we're not discussing directly at this time. So I strongly encourage you to get a copy of the handouts, print them, read them. And if you have any questions, you can certainly contact me. You can contact Anna at the Small Business Center. Get help, get answers, because to the extent that you understand these rules and how they work, that's going to be in the better interest of your organization, your business. Okay.
Excellent. Thanks so much, John. We're going to have Anna go ahead and pull up our PowerPoint one more time. And then let me see if we have any questions for you, John. Let's see here. Well, Anna is pulling that up. And all right, I have a question about what exactly is the tip credit?
Well, the tip credit allows employers in the state of Arizona to pay a cash wage that's up to $3 less than the minimum wage. So in Arizona, the minimum wage became $12.15 as of January 1st of this year. So an employer could pay a tipped employee $9.15 if that tipped employee does not receive sufficient tips to meet the $12.15, the difference has to be made up by the employer. So let's say you have Frank or Betty, Sally or Tim, they're a waiter, waitress, server. They're being paid $9.15 an hour. At the end of the evening, they've worked 4 hours. You take 4 times $12.15, that's the minimum wage. You take 4 times $9.15, you add whatever tips they earned. And if the $9.15 plus the tips doesn't equal $12.15 an hour, you have to make up the difference. That's the law. Now, my experience is most servers with tips make more than that $3 credit. But I'm sure there are times when things are such that a server, waiter, waitress could have tips that are so small that they don't meet the $12.15, $9.15 plus the tips, and therefore the employer would have to make up the difference. Question about calculating it, can it be over the span of the pay period, or does it need to be done daily? It needs to be done daily. The $12.15 is a per hour, not per payroll period.
Okay. We also have
If
another
all
question.
employees are paid minimum, can tips be pooled and prorated? I believe that's possible. I would defer to the Industrial Commission, State of Arizona, but my understanding is that if you pay the minimum wage, which is $12.15, and you're not taking the tip credit, you can have a pool, tip pool, and distribute that in numerous ways. This question is about hours worked or some other formula, because as long as the tipped employees are receiving at least the minimum wage, how you distribute the tip pool, my understanding is that it's basically up to the employer. The 80-20, the 80-20 rules is a question. According to the new DOL regs that were published in December, the 80-20 rule is going to go away. But given that it's likely that the current administration will either pull the regs or modify the regs before they become legally effective, I don't know what the answer to that is right now. Because what can happen is employers can say, oh, it's going to go away and I can do this. Then the current administration gets involved and all of a sudden you have to undo something. So if it were me, I'd wait until we have more information. I'd wait until the regulations that were published in December either become effective or we find out what changes have been made. One of the things that I do is periodically I send out information about these issues. The SBDC is on that list, that distribution list. So they will be notified if the law becomes effective or if there are changes. So if you guys want to hang in there until the law either becomes effective without changes or becomes effective with changes, they'll have that information and then they can share it with you folks so that you're not in never land out there wondering what to do.
Yeah, but anyone who has any specific questions related to their restaurant or their business, the SBDC counselors are here to help you. You can be sure to submit a request for counseling form, or if you already have a counselor, be sure to reach out to them too. Again, they're here to support you and your business, especially during this time.
Any other questions that I could answer for you guys?
We just have one. Not sure if this is more of a counselor question or a question for you, John. You let me know. Per their understanding, a waitress can only be paid $3 below the minimum wage. That $3 is tip credit. So for 2021, we can't pay them less than $19.50. Is that correct?
Cash wages from the employer. So in Arizona, under the Arizona Fair Wages and Healthy Families Act, an employer can have a tip credit of up to $3 an hour. So that would be $12.15 minus 3. There you go, $9.15 an hour. Then again, at the end of each shift, each day, when the tips are added, if that $9.15 plus the total of the tips doesn't meet or exceed $12.15 an hour, then the employer has to make up the difference.
Perfect. And those were all the open questions that we have so far, John. So Anna, if you want to go ahead and take it away from here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, John. I mean, that's all stuff that is never the most exciting thing to talk about, but really get people in trouble if they don't know what's going on. So we really appreciate your expertise on that. And if you do have more questions for John, you can reach out to him. His contact information will be on this handout we're sending to you. You can also reach out to me or any of your SBDC counselors for more information on any of the topics he discussed. Going forward, I'm going to introduce Paula Whitkind. She is the supervisor of our CARES program, and she's going to give you a brief description of what's going on with the PPP round 2, round 1, the EIDL loans, some debt relief information. We'll talk a little bit about some restaurant-specific grants and the shuttered venue operators grant. Paula?
All right, great. Thank you, Anna. How about, since we have a little bit of time left, if you could take me back to that appendix section, and I'll kind of quickly run through the slides that we have just to talk briefly about each of these different COVID relief funding programs. So let's start off with the Paycheck Protection Program. We're going to talk briefly about that first draw, second draw, a little bit about forgiveness. So Anna, if you could take us forward. So I think probably most of you know that the new law that was signed on December 27th of 2020 has now made additional funding available for the Paycheck Protection Program. So the first draw and the second draw programs are both open. The deadline date to apply is March 31st, 2021, or until the funds are expended. But just a note on this, if you have not yet applied for either the first draw or the second draw, just know that the March 31st date is not apply by this date. It's you must have that loan number by that date. So make sure if you've not taken any action on either one of these that you get in there and don't delay, because you don't want to miss that deadline. That first draw PPP loan is available now for businesses who did not apply last year. So this would be the first time applying for a PPP loan. The second draw is available to those who received a PPP loan last year and have used or will be using those funds, and they are now eligible to apply for a second round of funding. So if you'd go forward, Anna. And here just briefly, they've added with the new funding, some new eligible businesses listed at the top. Go ahead and move forward one, please. And in general, to be eligible, you have to have been in operation February 15th of 2020, and of course not permanently closed. Or you were an eligible self-employed individual, independent contractor, or sole proprietor with no employees, or had employees for whom it paid salaries and payroll taxes. So pretty much basically the same rules that had applied last year. Now, as restaurants, right, some seasonal businesses, You're eligible if you were in operation for any 12-week period during that February 12th, 2019 to February 12th, 2020 date. Okay. And move forward, please, Hannah. Yes. So here again, the PPP loans, whether it's a first draw loan or a second draw loan, is through an approved lender. So you can find a list. Now, obviously, if you had a PPP loan last year, the first logical stop would be the lender that you received that first loan from. They've got your data, your information. That process should be fairly smooth and quick. But you don't have to go back to that first lender. You can certainly approach another lender to apply for a loan if it's that second draw loan. And you can find this approved PPP lender list on the Arizona SBA district website. And we do show the link here. So you can review that list and decide what lenders you want to approach. Okay, go ahead, Anna. And just a quick reminder now, the rules still remain the same, right? So this is a loan, but as long as you use the funds correctly as stated, that it is forgiven. So the basic rules are still at, you must use 60% of the PPP loan funds for payroll purposes to be eligible for this forgiveness. And forgiveness simply means you've used the funds correctly, you apply for forgiveness after you completed using those funds, and the loan is forgiven as long as you've used them appropriately. So 60% for payroll, and we have the list showing here: salaries, wages, payment for vacation, allowance for separation or dismissal, employee benefits, state and local taxes assessed, and of course, sole proprietors, independent contractors can still apply for the PPP loan. Go ahead, Anna. Now, at least 60% must be used for salary. You can use 100% for salary. That's completely fine. But 40% of the funds can be used for other business expenses. And so with this new extension, they've added some additional expenses that will apply to this forgiveness. And so we've listed them here: rent and mortgage, utilities, interest on debt obligations, operations expenses, property damage, supplier costs, and covered protection expenditures, PPP equipment, basically, right? So in your restaurants, if you're having to buy PPP equipment, change things up in that environment, put up shields and things like that, that is now incorporated into use of funds for that other 40%. All right, go ahead. And just really quickly, we won't spend any time on this really, but this just Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
it looks like you just unmuted for a second there, Paula. Not sure what happened.
All right. So the calculation remains the same. Basically, you take your aggregate payroll from 2019 to 2020, that 12 months, you divide it by 12 to get an average, and you multiply it by a factor of 2.5. And so that gives you the, for the first draw loan, that is the same calculation as it was for last year. Basically covering about 2.5 months of that salary. Go ahead, Anna, next slide. Now, if you don't have employees, you're going to follow that same basic calculation, except what you're going to do is you're going to go to your tax form, your Form 1040, and look at your Schedule C, line 31, and you can take that amount, divide it by 12 to get an average, and multiply it by a factor of 2.5. Now, if you are an employer, maybe you're the owner of the business, but then you also have employees, you're going to add those two together, right? The amount from your line, from your Schedule C, line 31, plus the payroll for your employees, divided by 12 and multiply it by that 2.5 factor. Now, for seasonal employees, they do allow for, you can pick that period. So rather than that 12 months, you can pick that payroll period any 12 weeks between February 15th, 2019 and February 25th, 2020. And then the same basic calculation. Get the average and multiply by the 2.5 factor for the first draw loan. Go ahead, Anna, next slide. Now, the second draw loan, again, these are the ones that are available if you already had received that PPP loan. Next slide. So you've received the first draw loan, you're eligible, you're going to use or will have used that full amount of the first PPP loan. You cannot have more than 300 employees, and you do need to demonstrate, in this case for the second draw, a 25% reduction in your gross revenues between a comparable quarter from 2019 to 2020. So you do need to show that calculation and provide proof that you've actually had that 25% reduction in your gross revenues in that time frame. Now, this does allow, so it's still the basic 2.5 multiplier, basically that same calculation. But if you are in the accommodation and food services industry, the NAICS code 72, what the second draw allows you to do now is use a multiplying factor of 3.5. So it allows you to get a little bigger piece of that pie for that second draw PPP loan. So the calculation's basically the same. It's just your factor is multiplied by 3.5 instead of the 2.5 for businesses that are not in the NAICS 72 food and accommodations. So that's good news. That's good news. Next slide, Anna. All right, and here again, I already mentioned this. Just know that in that application form, there's a place in the application form you're going to have to fill in that number, and you're going to have to provide that supporting documentation. They may not, oftentimes the lenders don't necessarily use the SBA form for the application. They have their own maybe online form. Same information they're going to be asking you. They may not require that documentation right up front when you apply, but it is required to be submitted on or before the date the borrower that you apply for that loan forgiveness. So remember, it's always about keeping all the documentation if you're getting any of these government funds and loans, to keep very detailed documentation. Next slide. Okay, briefly on the EIDL loan, the economic injury disaster loan. Next slide, Anna. Now this is still available. So the new legislation passed extended these funds through December 31st, 2021. And so this is a loan. This is not a loan that is forgiven. This is the one it's at the 3.75% for small business, 2.75% for nonprofits. It's up to 30 years. You have a 1-year deferment. There's no prepayment penalties. So a really good rate on this loan. Now, this is available if you did not apply for an EIDL loan in 2020. Now, if you applied last year and declined, we've not heard anything that you will have an opportunity to apply again. Now, just know that, this is what we know today, right? Things can change, right, as more guidance is released. So this is what we know today, but it's available through the end of the year if you did not apply last year and you were not declined. So next slide. Now, you may have heard of this Targeted EIDL Advance Grant. So if you recall last year, the EIDL Advance Grant, they were issuing monies to businesses up to $10,000 based on $1,000 per employee. So what's happened now with this new law is the Targeted EIDL Advance Grant is open to those businesses who received an advance grant but did not receive the full $10,000 amount. And so what's happening is they've provided additional funding, and they are reaching out to those businesses who are in that situation, did not receive the full $10,000. They have under 300 employees or less, and so they're reaching out, and they're in a low-income community. And so what's happening with the Targeted EIDL Advance, you don't go apply for this, openly apply. If you're eligible, you'll receive an email from the SBA letting you know that you're eligible to apply for this additional funding of this Targeted EIDL Advance. So the first priority is to those who received some advance, under 300 employees, and are in those low-income communities. And there's some, federal codes and regulations that kind of define who those communities are. So if you're in that group, you'll receive an email from the SBA. Now, from what we've recently read, it looks like those emails started to go out or were to be going out February 1st. And so it could take some time to receive that. So the second group now, depending on the funds and what funds remain, if you applied for an EIDL grant last year but did not receive one because the funding of the program ran out, then technically that's the second round. That may be, funds may be available for that second round that had applied, but the funds were no longer there in 2020. There's really no date given as to when they might begin to contact that second group of potential recipients of the EIDL Targeted Advance Grant. So that's what we know today on that particular program. Next slide. And here we kind of already covered this. You have to show that 30% reduction, low income community, and you have to provide documentation to show that reduction, and the SBA will be notifying directly. So if you get that email, it will come from sba.gov is what we're seeing. All right, the SBA Debt Relief. So for those of you who may have an SBA loan, go ahead to the next slide, Anna. The debt relief program extends out. Basically what it was is last year, the SBA paid 6 months of principal and interest if you had that SBA 7A 504 or line of credit. So now there's additional funding to continue that. So basically what's happening this year is if you had that SBA loan and you had that 6 months payment last year, you're eligible for an additional 3 months of principal and interest payments in 2021 starting in February. And this is something that happens automatically. So there is 4, and I'm just going to look at my notes so I don't mess this up because there are a lot of details to some of these programs. But basically, so there's a 3-month extension. If you're in the NAICS Code 72 for those food and accommodation industries, it looks like there's an additional potential 5 months plus that 3 months that would be available. So that's what it looks like. I would say, definitely reach out to your lender because these happen automatically from the lender. You've got the loan with your lender, and this is something that's kind of happening in the background. But it's really important as the borrower to check in with your lender, make sure you know that that's taking place and happening and those payments are being made. So, okay, let's continue to the shuttered venue grant. I think that's our next one. And there should be a slide after that. Now, this basically is that grant. You may have heard of it for operators of the businesses that are the live venue operators, promoters, theaters, museums, those types of industries, not necessarily restaurants, but there is funding for this particular group of businesses, this industry, and this will be a grant available. This is not live yet. There is some information about what you need to do to prepare to apply for this. So, if you happen to be one of these types of businesses on our call today, or you know of someone, this is a great place with any of these programs. Meet with your SBDC counselor because there are a lot of details and every business is different. And it helps to sit down, and this is just something that we're doing with our clients, is helping them navigate these programs and understanding all these different ins and outs and details in the guidance documents and how it applies to your business. So I think that was the last slide, Anna.
And real quick on that, Paula, and maybe you want to reach, into that a little bit more, but in order to apply for the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant, you cannot apply for PPP loans. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. It's one or the other. Correct. Yes. Now, if you get declined for the Shuttered Venue Grant, you can certainly go and apply for the PPP loan. It looks like from what we're reading that you can't do that at the same time. You have to make that business decision. Okay. Anna, do you want to talk about the local grants now? I think you had a few things to bring us up to speed on that.
Yeah, just a few things. So there's the governor's grant, which is called the Safest Outside Grant. I'm not sure when my screen went away, so let me fix that for you. But it is a really great program if you're able to utilize it. So what it does is it gives you $10,000 to expand any outdoor space. And that can be, they really haven't laid a rule down on how big that has to be. Sorry, just trying to get us back to where we were. Okay, here we go. So you can expend it a few feet, 10 feet, 2 feet. It doesn't really say what you can do or what you have to do with it. It just has to be an expansion, and that can go into tables, heaters, planters, anything that's going to help you serve your customers outside. And that is a grant. If you're approved for it, it does not have to be paid back. $1 million was just put into that grant again. So they do keep increasing it. However, funds can potentially run out. So if that's something you're interested in, talk to your counselor, call me, and we can kind of walk you through the application process. But it's a great way to expand, the amount of people you can serve. I also saw one today for the town of Gilbert. If you're in Gilbert, they are doing, let me get the exact name right for it here, the Gilbert Together Business Recovery Grant. So if you're in Gilbert, go ahead and look into that. I know it'll be posted on our webpage if it hasn't been yet, Laura.
No, it has not been. Our website is updated every Monday and Friday. So as new grants come out, we update our website Mondays and Fridays for those. And we do have a quick question for you, Anna. What was that previous grant that you were talking about? What was that one called?
It's called the Safest Outside Grant, and that's from Governor Ducey's office. So that's a state-based grant.
And Laura, I do see there are a couple of other questions here. Let's see, we have a question about that 3.5 is only for the second time drawers, correct? That is correct. That 3.5 multiplying factor is for the second draw PPP loans. So yes. And then there's another question here. If a 10,000 EIDL grant was received in the first round, but not the EIDL loan, is the PPP forgiveness reduced by the 10K grant? No, thankfully. With this new legislation, they removed the fact that EIDL advance grant is subtracted from the forgiveness amount. So it is no longer subtracted from the forgiveness amount.
And I'm glad you caught those ones in the chat, Paula, but we do also have some in the Q&A. Okay. So one was wondering if do we need to have a 25% revenue reduction from 2019 to 2020 for the second PPP? Yes, you do. And we have a simple little template that the counselors, if you have a counselor that can help you through that or sign up for counseling, that's something we can help you figure out. It's pretty simple calculation, but yes.
Yeah, and that's quarter over quarter, not year over year.
Yeah.
So you can choose any quarter within, you have to compare identical quarters. So Q2 seems to be a very popular one, as that's what everybody got hit really hard in 2020. So it's quarter over quarter.
Some flexibility built in there. So that's good.
Yes. And we do have a few questions, Justin. I would recommend that you reach out to your counselor. It seems very specific to their business, just about PPP and who they can talk to about some of the issues that they're having around PPP loans. Definitely SBDC counselors are here to support you. Feel free to reach out to your counselor or submit a request for counseling. I will provide that link here in a moment for you to request a counseling. We do have one more question about second PPP loans. What is the time frame that they're using for forgiveness? 8-week, 24-week, etc.
You have it up to 24 weeks. So there's a little more flexibility now. So once you finish using those monies, you have up to 24 weeks. We have 24 weeks to use it, but then once you've used the money, you have an additional 10 months before you have to apply for forgiveness, if that's what the question is. So you have more time to use the money. And then once you've used the money, then you have that 10-month time window to apply for the forgiveness.
Yep, and those are all the questions that we have open right now in the Q&A.
Right, thank you, Laura. So, and if there's more questions that come up, just go ahead and pop those in the Q&A and we'll get to those before the end of the program. But wanted to just run through some of the things we have coming up. For you to attend that all are valuable. Absolutely. We have the COVID-19 relief funding, strictly focusing on that tomorrow from 1 to 2. That's a very, very good program. If you're wanting to get into applying for any of these loans, it really goes a little more in depth than we were able to do today. We have the Great Marketing Turnaround Workshop. This is a 3-part series. If you missed the first one, that's okay. You can jump in on the second one. You can also watch the first one, which is recorded on our website. And then we have, session 3 is coming up too on the 18th. So go ahead and sign up for both of those. Really valuable information. And then we have a digital marketing program coming up on the 17th, 2 to 2:30. I do believe Chris is the counselor. Will be running these, and he's gonna be doing them, I think, once a week. So quick, I know everybody's busy, 30-minute little presentations to give you some tips, and then get on with your day, so you're not stuck at the computer too long. But these are amazing programs for you to really take advantage of.
And really quick, Anna, before you go on, just about the Great Marketing Program, it is very interactive, those sessions. So unfortunately, we're not able to post the recording to our website, but we will encourage you to sign up for our next sessions because of how interactive they are and hands-on they are.
Okay, thanks, Laura. It's hard to keep all of our offerings, in one place, but yeah, definitely sign up for that second one, even if you didn't attend the first session. And like Laura said, please, if you don't have a counselor yet, do it. It's a great business decision. You can request counseling here. Again, it is always no fee for you. There's no harm in just having someone in your corner to talk to and walk you through some of the problems that you're facing now, and hopefully build a very strong future for your business. On our website, you'll find COVID-19 resources, like we were talking about those grants. Those are, like Laura said, updated every Monday and Friday, so keep an eye on those. And if they apply to you, go get it. Definitely apply for any money that you can to help your business get through this tough time. You can see all of our counselor biographies on our website as well, so you can pick and choose whose expertise you need. If you'd like to reach out directly to a counselor, we have people with all kinds of marketing, financial, international trade, every type of expertise you would need. And keep an eye on our training calendar. We have great programs coming up, like I just mentioned, and follow us on social media. We post some great information for businesses on there, reminders about our events and things like that. So definitely follow us on our social media pages. And Laura, did we have any questions come up? I thought I saw some.
Not that I saw, not in the Q&A. I also, actually we do have a couple. Let's see, we have someone who says, Biani, yes, counselors can assist with all types of businesses. We also have someone who said, is it 10 months from loan funding or 10 months from the end of period? I think they are talking back about the PPP loans.
So you can apply for forgiveness. It's that 10 months after you've used those funds.
And then Smokey Joe's Hot Dogs would like to know if there's a 6-month delayed payment to apply for the new SBA loans.
So I'm looking for the question again, Laura. Okay. If the 6-month delayed payments will apply to, there is if you do get an SBA loan, a new SBA loan this year, there is that SBA Debt Relief that it looks like applies to a new SBA loan this year.
And then someone was wondering if the Safest Outside grant can apply for caterers as well.
That's a tough question. I think everything I've seen is it has to go to a brick and mortar location. So if you're doing food service out of your catering facility, I think yes. But the whole goal of that grant is to be able to allow you to seat more people outside. So, maybe we can talk offline or talk to your counselor about your exact details and see if you'll qualify for that.
And then as far as picking a yearly quarter, does it have to be January, February, March, or can it be March to June? So is it just a 3-month period, or is it like a calendar quarter month?
You're muted, Paula.
I believe it's a calendar quarter.
Yeah, that's what I believe too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that looks like that was all of our open questions today, Anna.
All right. We are finishing 2 minutes early in respect of your time. And we appreciate everyone who's joined us today. We do have our second restaurant series coming up, which will be posted shortly. That's gonna be on March 2nd. We're discussing ghost kitchens. I'm very excited. We have a guest speaker that should be really interesting. But if you haven't been following, even I think, was it Phoenix Business Journal came out with some stuff today, but Wildflower, Thirsty Lion, Sam Fox, all these guys are really going into the ghost kitchen direction. It's a super exciting new opportunity for businesses that have kitchen space. So we'll have some really exciting speakers and topics on that, kind of give you the inside information on what a ghost kitchen is and how it can improve your bottom line. So when you see that come up for March 2nd, please register.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Anna. And again, thank you all for joining us today. And thank you for hanging in there as we had some technical difficulties with our Zoom account today. But again, as you exit this webinar, you will find a survey for you to complete. This will definitely help us know what topics you're facing so far, what challenges during COVID you are facing, and then that helps us know what topics we can present on. So this information that you provide to us, we do look at and we do utilize for future programs. So thank you all so much for joining us again today, and we hope to see you all at future webinars. Thank you, Anna, for presenting, and thank you, John, for also presenting with us today. And I hope you all have a great day. Bye.
Thank you, guys.